Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program Business Point on Global Television. I am Samuel Odi, and on today's edition, we have several angles to x-ray in the form of reform to boost forex inflow into the country. Then now we'll be looking at it from several angles, from the governmental angle and as well as from the individual angle, and things they need to do to help improve their businesses as well as expanding and also generating forex inflow for businesses and as well as into Nigerian economy at large. So we'll be explaining all of that today. I have a guest in the studio with me who is joining me, and then we will help x-ray all of this. But before we get deep into the conversation, we'll be going on a quick break, and then when we come back, Business Point continues. Please do stay with us. For staying with us, and now let's talk business. My guest is here, Mr. John Ochai. Good morning, Mr. John.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's program, edition of the program.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so let's look at it now. How do we boost forex inflow into Nigerian economy?
All right. Thank you very much. And it's a privilege being here. And thank you, listener out there. There are so many diverse ways you can boost foreign exchange. And one of the ways is through direct foreign investment.
Okay.
But one of the things the problem we have that have been lingering over time is as a result of we feel on our part to do the needful to ensure that, yes, we're able to attract foreign investor into the country. And that was basically the major reason why we have been having lingering issues with foreign exchange between the exchange rate between dollar and naira. Then when the President Bola Tinubu came on board, he looked at the unifications of the dollarization. So you have to unify it to ensure that, yes, they have one exchange rate, you know, that we're able to ensure that there is a stability in the economic preview, and then it will not attract the foreign investor to come into the country and invest. But one of the problems we have been hearing about reform from time immemorial down to this very moment.
Yes.
But one of the biggest challenge we talk about reform, but the question is the reform holistic or is a window dressing reform? And over time, most of the reform in Nigeria to boost dollar, boost economy, boost businesses, those are window dressing procedure measures that have been put in place over time. Then when we are holistic in nature as a citizen who really think about the generations of yet unborn to come, then there are diverse ways you can able to change the processes on how the government do things, on how individuals do things, on how also the business conglomerates that we have also do things as well. And one of the ways is that you cannot begin to sell in other currency. You can't go to American and begin to buy in naira or you sell in naira. You can't go to Britain, Great Britain, and then begin to sell and buy in naira. Because you have to convert your currency, their currency, to your own currency.
Yes.
Meaning, Nigeria sell their oil, which is the mono-economic which we are, because over time we have been talking about diversification.
Yes.
But it's also the window-dressing diversification that I have also talked about. We will come back to that when we are proceeding in the long run. You know, when there is a nature of such, you will continue to have problems. So the only way, I've said one. So the second way that we will be able to boost the inflows of the foreign exchange is that we should try as much as we can to promote exports. Nigeria is virtually a consuming nation.
Yeah.
And a consuming nation depends on import. And then when you depend on import, then there is no way you'll be able to balance trade differences because you are importing and then you don't complement with your export. So the truth of the matter, when we continue in that drive, there is no way we'll be able to command or we bring inflows of the foreign exchange into the Nigeria coffer to ensure that, yes, our currency also become equilibrium in such situation. So what we should do, we should promote as a country to the export rate at which we export our goods and then put most of the product that we extracted from the soil to the finishing goods, and then we export. Not only extracting and looking at the foreign nations to come to buy, then they produce, they put it into a finished goods, and then you bring it to the country. What that means is that your resources is being drained. They drain your natural resources, and then they drain your intangible resources, and then they drain your monetary resources also as well. And these are the basic issues that they need to tackle. So when you tackle the window dressing and become a holistic dressing, and when you tackle the export promotion through the Export Promotion Council, and then able to, there are so many companies in Nigeria today that are in top notch that can promote export on behalf of the government. And then lastly, on how you're able to command the foreign inflows of forests is that you, as a nation, you need to totally diversify, and not just only diversification, you need to privatize from all the upstreams and the downstreams of every sector of the business sector.
Okay, we will still come back to the window dressing, but before we get back to that, let's look at, it's been said that grains will be imported into the country, and then you've made mention of Nigeria paying more attention to what they have locally and extracting. So what's your reaction to the importation of grains that is set to hit Nigeria in the next couple of weeks?
If you look at the index, the inflationary index,
yes,
you see that the food inflation
is at 40.
Yes. It means that we are not producing enough to complement that will satisfy rather the citizens of this country. And since we are not producing enough, because there are also challenges hovering around it, because it's a different ballgame when we begin to dabble into that, because you have to look at the security challenges, you have to look at the economic challenges, you have to look at the external factor and all that. But we are not going to look at that. When a nation is not producing to complement or to satisfy based on the demands of her citizenry, automatically it becomes so difficult. And you look at it now, the grain in the market, in the Nigerian market today, cannot satisfy her citizen. And in other words, we need to complement from the external until when we be able to feed ourselves, then on that angle, because every human being needs to survive. And for you to survive, you need to eat. And for you to eat, how do you eat? When you cannot produce the one that can satisfy you. So you have to depend on the importation. But in the long run, that is why I do talk about the window dressings of the approach to things that we do in Nigeria. Right from government of Buhari, we thought of diversification, and our major focus was on agriculture. And there are so many anchor borrowing programs that was established, and to them, they executed it. And in other words, you can't allow government and politicians who are in a helm of affair to take over a helm of affair and begin to decide on the things that ordinarily technocrats who have the technical know-how to approach it. So in other words, everything that was done in those process was done on the window dressing without really getting to the bottom. So the money that we are supposed to get to the farmer could not get to the farmer, but get to the hands of the politician. And at the end of the day, the politician swindled those things, and he could not get to the buttons of the end user. And it became a challenge. So over time, we have a program. He's on the window dressing on the paper because Nigeria will like face value. Come together, have a show of presentation, and at the end of the day, the real thing, they divert the real thing from the reality until we begin to approach things on the reality point of view, then we'll be able to actualize. And ever since then, that those anchor borrower agricultural promotion that was done, since we did not achieve the aim, who and who has been questioned by this present generation, who and who have been called to come and give an account on things they have done, until those things are really checkmated, then we were able to get to the bottoms of the reality and deal with the real issue. But when you don't deal with the real issue, you will continue to have, before now, fuel has become a problem. We have been on queue since 1972. In this 21st century, into 2024, we are still on queue.
Yes.
We talk about Operation Feed the Nation during when Obasanjo was a head of state. And to this very moment, we are also thinking, how do we feed ourselves? It's a call for questioning, that we need to ask our question, where did we miss it? Until we begin to realize those window dressing that we have been on for over time, when we change our mindset and begin to approach it in a holistic manner, then all the importation sorts of things that we are thinking of, then by now we won't be able to be thinking on that direction, because Nigeria is blessed with mineral and human resources. There is no labor force that you want to hire today in this part of the world that you cannot get. When you talk about technical know-how, we have it because we have professionals all over the world. Look at this present Olympic. Look at German, Britain, Ireland, and every gold medal that was taken by the Nigeria who pay allegiance to other nationalities. But the ones that are sent from this country, what did they do? Did they come back with any glory? The answer is no. And that is exactly what we have been doing over time, that we scout for things that we are not supposed to scout for, instead of begin to build and promote and direct and impart on the existing one that you know you can have a confidence on and all that, be there to achieve what you want to do. Until Nigeria begin to holistically set up a measure, set up industry that can be really focused. And the only way to achieve that, government are not a good manager. And since government are not a good manager, they need to bring private investor through PPP to ensure this profit driven. Because the essence of the government is to create an entity, generate revenue from that entity and spend. And in the process of spending, automatically that is where the problem lies. Because by the time they put everything in the recurrent automatically the money is just spent not to protect the enclave of other things that do. But when you organize through PPP, at the private sector in partnership with the government, they will put a organogram in place. There will be structural processes that is on ground, that the private investor bringing their resources, they can be trust, because there are trust companies that will also be part of the same program. And when they come, then based on the legal framework that is on board, then everybody knows their place, that government can be sued if they are breaching the contract, and the private can be sued if they are breaching the contract. Then the intent will be that it is truly profit maximization. Then they can invest to other things that they could do. But when government come on board and begin to work on the process of generating income, which they cannot give an account for, automatically the aims what aims why we want to actualize what we want to actualize. We cannot actualize it because it cannot be achieved, because what we will be seeing in the pages of newspaper, radio station, and television station that they are saying is quite different from what they do in the back. And that is why you see today, I wouldn't want to mention, but there are so many agencies today who have not given an account to the federal government on how much they have generated for over 3 years. And you know better than me.
Let's look at this angle. Now, you made mention of the due diligence and anchor borrowing program. Do you think that the Bank of Agriculture is doing its due diligence when it comes to these loans being given out to farmers?
They do due diligence, of course. Because there was a time I personally, I was going into agriculture and think I have a cooperative, I registered through cooperative societies and all that. And then we went to do our registrations. They give us the eligibility criteria on how to do the needful and what we should do. Yes, they did that. They came, sent their agents to come and verify what we are saying. And actually, they did the verification. And we present all the paperwork that we need to present. And then they gave us a condition for us to attain that. We need to manage the business for a social period of time. And we say, okay, no problem. And we did that. If I thought they didn't do the diligence, they wouldn't have X-ray, and do their forensic, and then give us a timeline on how we'll be able to assess and all that.
Yes.
And so, for me, they do their diligence. But the question is, if you look at the Nigeria sector, through the monetary aspect now, there are so many politicking around it.
Because you saying that they did their due diligence, I'm about to ask if they did the due diligence to the end. After the due diligence now, did you get, or when you now personally tried applying, did you then get the loan, or some other things happen along the line?
Along the line, I turned down the loan.
Okay.
And the reason why I turned down the loan, because I needed the loan, but the time frame given to me and the criteria they asked me to put through before assessing the loan, I think it's taking a longer time than it should. So, and then I will be able to source other funds from other way, which is not healthy for existing startup business who won't need capital to invest within the country, which you have an access to where those investments will go, and there are other paperwork, and then you are given a stringent conditions for, then ease of doing business will be very difficult in that light.
Okay, let's talk about local businesses now. How do local business and, from strategy, partnership with foreign companies to increase forex influx into the country?
Yes, partnership and through those framework will be able to, bring all about inflows of forex into the country. Yes, but if you look at do you think
the monetary policy is fair for foreign investors?
The monetary policies is not fair for foreign investors, because in a society such as ours, with a developing nation, when you have a stringent condition tying the economy and tying the monetary policy, because when you look at the fiscal policy through the taxation aspect, is have already tied the economy.
Yes.
And from the monetary policy, taking the interest rate from 13% to 30%, it has also reducing the borrowing powers of every business. And that is why you see Dangote was crying that many businesses are going to fold up. And then when you are trading and then you cannot make profit, how do you attract the foreigners to bring their resources to come and invest in the local company in Nigeria? It's not possible. They will begin to search elsewhere, because even if you look at the big 3 companies that are in the country, they are moving to the nearby country to ensure that they establish. Because when you are establish a business in a critical and a harsh condition, the business won't survive. Look at the borrowing power has reduced drastically. For instance now, let's just use a million for instance. When you apply for a ₦1 million loan, and if you are paying back after taking off-road charges, taking insurance percent, taking the management cost and all that, and taking the interest rate added to the central bank interest rate, you pick a 1 million and you are paying back with per annum about 1.750 or 1.9. depend on the bank or the micro credit institutions that is financing that company. What do you think as a businessman you do? Automatically, you leverage on loan.
Yes.
And then what it means is that the banks or the financial institution may later turn and take that business from you. Because if you cannot afford to pay back the loan or liquidate the loan, what do you think? They will clamber down on you. And then what are the moratorium giving when loan is given? Go to the commercial banks today or development bank. The moratorium given is not more than 2 months. And what kind of business that we establish within the 2 months that you begin to yield profit before you start recouping the actual capital and then paying back and then other operational costs that you need to maintain, salary that you need to pay. But then you put all those things together, automatically with this present interest rate, it's not going to attract the foreigner to come and invest in the local company. Rather, more money will leave Nigeria shore to the other foreign company because when the foreign currency is increasing, the local currency will be draining because people will like in other means to invest in other currency so that they will in return in profit to do. I was going through, I wouldn't want to mention the company because I don't want to advertise the company.
Please don't.
The company now calling Nigeria and other African currency that they can convert their currency and aim in the hard currency. That when the hard currency profit is coming in return, they will balance and they will be able to achieve the necessary thing that they need to achieve within their job. So a lot of people now is going out to ensure. And then lastly, before you come in, you can look at the society now. There is a japa-ism that is ongoing. A lot of people are traveling. There is what they call diaspora fund that is supposed to be repatriated in the country. Most of the diaspora that are supposed to repatriate those countries there, and because the economic is not flexible, because the economic is not profitable, what do? Instead of bringing that money home, they rather invest that money in other countries to sustain their plans at home.
Okay, you know, these have been most of the challenges that has been faced now in the Nigerian economy, right? So what is the solution now? What's the end solution to all of this, and what can be done to ease the pressure in business sectors and have foreign investors come into the country?
All right. The solutions to it, which I will advise the government and the policy manager and even the CBN also as well. First, through the fiscal policy measure.
Yes.
I understand that, yes, the government is trying to control the inflationary measure, but you can't control inflationary measure and then you are losing your necessary revenue generator also as well. So I think they need to balance the scale by, a little bit reduce the tax scale so that those who are under the tax net will be able to have a kind of freedom and liberty to ensure that they do their business. Then when you come to the monetary policy, you can't leave. There is no business that can be sustained without a liability. And individuals are not giving their financial asset to people free of charge. And then you have to leverage from the commercial bank or the development bank. So, but when the interest rate is high, automatically it becomes so stiffy for someone to go and access such kind of asset collateral to put as a liability into a business. So the the CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, should reduce that interest rate. Even if you cannot reduce it to the normal threshold, at least it's 18 or 16.5% is fair for this economic right now.
All right, Mr. John, thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of the program. Sadly, time is not permitting us to dig in more into this conversation, but we will definitely revisit this conversation in one of our episodes again. Mr. John, thank you so much for joining us. So I had Mr. John live here with me in the studio, who is a financial analyst, and he has x-rayed and not just scratched the surface, but went in deep in answering most of the tough questions that Nigerians have. On today's edition of Business Point, we want to draw the curtain at this hour, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow with another exciting edition of the program. My name is Samuel Odi. Do have a great day ahead. Bye for now.